Just a minute.
It's all good. I got nowhere to go. You literally interrupted my evening of watching the Animaniacs like an adult. I was doing busy adult things. I was washing dishes and watching cartoons, and it was very important. You bet. Hi, I'm Emmy.
And I'm James.
And welcome back to The Bestiary Monster Manual A through Z. And James, what do we have today?
You do not want to make a risotto with this. We're looking at the Monster Manual entry on fungi. And you may be thinking, well, that sounds a little bit dull. Why is that in the Monster Manual? It's because these are not your regular garden variety mushrooms. These are Underdark fungi.
Yes, and much like everything in the Underdark, it's suffused with this very unnatural, aberrant, magical influence that bleeds into the realm itself. Yeah, these guys, we've got 3 varieties in this particular entry. We've got the Gaspor, the Shrieker, and the Violet fungi, and all of them are largely just there to give you the heebs.
They're nasty. None of them, in and of themselves, super intimidating or impressive, but they're very much a part of their environment, and so, I think have a lot of potential for if you are running a campaign in the Underdark, or your adventurers find themselves there, including liberal usage of this particular kind of fungus, or kinds, I should say, fungi. Can really lend a lot to the sense of atmosphere and dread and just things being a little bit wonky.
Yeah, the Underdark itself has multiple biomes within it. So you could be crawling along in this darkened shale cavern and then suddenly enter this giant catacomb filled with bright bioluminescent fungi, and some of it is just fungus, but maybe a lot of this stuff is hanging out in there. Or you crawl through the lair of something that's been long dead in the Underdark, and some of this is growing out. There's 1,000,001 different uses for these guys.
And of course, the nature of fungi means that they do not need water or sunlight, unlike other plant life. So they tend to grow out of dead things, of which the Underdark has plenty. With the Gaspor, for instance, if a creature inhales the spores from this fungus, they are then usually afflicted with a terrible disease and die within a day. And then the gas spores come out of that corpse. So it's pretty metal and pretty nasty.
Yeah, the Gaspor is ultimately, I think, just even by the numbers, is almost certainly the most intimidating of the fungi that we see in the Monster Manual. Taking a look at the art.
Mm-hmm.
Ha!
Instantly, you can see the potential here for terrifying your adventurers, particularly at a lower level, because you describe what they see, and your players are going to think, oh no, we're having a beholder thrown at us. And especially at a low level, that's terrifying. But of course, it's their whole thing. They just kind of look like them. They have this eye-like thing in the center. They have these protrusions that look very much like beholder eye tentacles. And it's one of those kind of naturally evolved defense mechanisms. This thing looks like something that's a lot more intimidating. Because with an AC of 5 and 1 hit point, this thing is not very hard to kill. But it almost kind of wants you to.
It really kind of does. I know I've played, we've seen this guy, actually even in the Gauntlet, but I've seen this played where the player characters didn't even know that it wasn't a beholder until they ended up right in its snoot. And looking at it, you can really see where that would come from. But for me, especially if I was running this thing, it's like you were saying, its primary thing is if it dies, that's where it actually gets kind of scary. It's got a death burst. So if it explodes, and as it does when it dies, it just immediately just poofs into spores. If you inhale it, you have to make a DC 15 Constitution save. And if you don't, you have a disease. Those spores are in you, and they're going to kill you within, I think, is it 1d12 hours?
It's 1d12 hours plus your constitution.
Yeah.
So not long, really.
No, and it's not just you're going to be sick. No, it is death. It is death unless it is cured from you. And so this guy is a challenge rating half?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a challenge rating half. That's terrifying.
Yep.
Terrifying. You could throw that
Even,
at a higher level player and that would still be scary.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing with saving throws. Like, no matter how good your numbers are, you can still fail.
You can still fail that.
I think one of the possibly the most interesting thing about these guys, and again, kind of scary, is it reproduces from the corpses of things that have inhaled the spores.
Mm-hmm.
At one point or another, that thing might have been a beholder, the thing it's kind of evolved to look a bit like. And the spores within this thing carry fragments of that beholder's memories. And if you inhale those spores, you then gain those memories. So you can really see the potential for this thing that is just a fungus to form like a crucial story hook for something in relation to something much bigger than it. Like, it's fascinating, and it's got that really unique kind of eldritch horror that, you know, the Underdark is so good at evoking.
For me, these guys are needlessly cool. Again, 1,000,001 uses. With those beholder memories, you could be looking for something that maybe a beholder collected and kept in their lair down there. And maybe you have your players, one of them gets a schnoot full of one of these guys and ends up with like some random voices of that beholder. Or maybe you're not sure if the beholder is dead and you get down there and maybe now this of course would be some homebrew flair, but maybe like exhale, like as it's poofing along through the air, just exhaling some sounds from old dead beholder memories. It's
well, and on top of that, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, you've got like a sort of a field of these things just bobbing around, and your players think like, oh no, it's okay, it's not beholders, it's gas spores, just, you know, keep your distance kind of thing.
Natural.
But hiding in amongst them is a beholder.
Is the actual guy. Oh, they're so cool. They're so fun. And they would be just, again, 1,000,001 uses. I've said it tonight already, and I'll probably say it again. They're just cool. All right.
I mean, obviously you can tell that we're pretty into the gas spore. We shouldn't leave the others undiscussed, though. The Shrieker is pretty straightforward. It's pretty indistinguishable from most other kind of mushrooms that you might see, except that when you get close, it emits this ear-piercing shrieking noise, hence the name.
Yep.
So, you know, again, they're very much for flavour and environment enhancement, and you can see how denizens of the Underdark might use these as a kind of organic alarm system.
Yeah, this guy has 0 movement, so it can't move, it can't walk around. It can move around a little bit. If it's not moving, you might not necessarily notice it's a shrieker. In fact, it has a false appearance, so unless you're out there looking for one and watching it move, you're probably not going to see this guy. It's got 1s in most of its stats. It's 1 step up above Houseplant, but it does have sense in the way that it's got blind sight. It can tell when things are there. So if you're sneaking around and you fail that sneak check, this could be something that could just really suck. This could just throw a real wrench in your plans. You could be trying to sneak into this Underdark cavern where this great civilization is that you're trying to infiltrate, and when you walk in, you suddenly roll that 4 and the mushrooms start screaming,
and very, very rapidly your day gets a lot worse.
Yeah. Or maybe like the people who own this great cavernous mansion have grown shriekers out front specifically for this reason. Again,
I would.
Yeah, if I lived in the Underdark and then I want anyone crawling around, solid horticultural. But yeah.
Speaking of creeping around, the final entry, the violet fungus, this one can move.
Yes.
This one can ambulate.
Yes, it moves. It's got a speed of 5 feet, so it's just kind of along. Once again, if it's motionless, looks like any old normal fungus. It's got 1d4 rotting touch attacks. So
Yeah, which is actually, I think, a quite fun and interesting mechanic, because the idea of a number of attacks that a creature or thing has varying from round to round, I think that's quite a fun little mechanic, because, you know, the rotting touch attack it's not devastating, but it's not good either. Like, it's necrotic damage, and that's never good.
Yeah, it's got a reach of 10 feet. It's 1d8. So for something that's a quarter level challenge rating, I mean, if it hits you once and hits you hard, that's gonna hurt.
And it could just be doing it once. It could be doing it 4 times.
I think that's a fun mechanic also because it really lends to the sense of this isn't thinking. It's got a 1 intelligence. It's not an intelligent creature. It's just running on instinct. It's just flailing out and hitting things because it's nearby.
It's intelligent to the extent that something like a Venus flytrap is intelligent.
Basically.
Thank you once again for joining us here at the Bestiary, Monster Manual A to Z. Which of these fungi, would go best on a pizza, do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. While you're there, you can like this video, hit the bell to be notified when we release new content. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Here's some of our other stuff, and next week, join us when we're going to be looking at the Galeb Door.